Okay, the July 11, 2018 meeting of the Urban Design Commission will now come to order at 6:30 p.m. May we have a roll call, please?
Joe Miller.
Here.
Monica Sullivan.
Here.
Ed Leonetti.
Here.
Jerry Winchester.
Here.
Nicole Ream.
Here.
Steve Cohen.
Here.
Barbara Cash.
Here.
Melissa Morris has been excused. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes from April 11th, 2018? We have a motion from Monica Sullivan and a second from Jerry Winchester. Is there any objections to the minutes being approved?
Nothing.
Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to special order of business. Are there any disclosures, Barbara?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a disclosure in that I have a friendship acquaintance with the Bartows, with Mrs. Bartow. And that would be for case 2018-0064.
Okay, can we get a motion to have Commissioner Cash participate in the case?
What was?
She's disclosing that she's a friend of the Bartow petitioner. So we have a motion from Monica and a second from Jerry. Monica?
So I move forward for Barbara Cash to participate in the case.
I'm seconding that motion. Right? Oh. So, Barbara, there's some questions, a couple of questions.
Okay.
A substantial part of the present action. Do you know much about this particular action?
Not personally.
And do you have any particular financial interest in the outcome?
None.
So are you part of a group that is part of this action, or is it just, or no? So you don't know anything about it?
To clarify, this is the first I've been aware of this action. I'm just telling you that I have a friendship acquaintance with Mrs. Bartow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I am seconding the motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? I think we should just move to have Commissioner Cash participate. Thank you. Is there any other disclosures? There was no objection, right? Correct? Okay. You are to participate.
Thank you.
Are there any other disclosures? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Sullivan and a second from Commissioner Leonetti. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, it looks like we're moving on to public hearings. I will read the process. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is: 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. 2A, petitioners, including all his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., are given 5 minutes. C, individuals, 3 minutes. Number 3, when your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. 4, an individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Okay, first case on the public hearing agenda, case 2018-0064. Petitioner Skip and Danica Bartow are before us. May we have the staff's presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request from a variance from AMC 2107-020B4A for a roof overhang and support column to encroach into the 25-foot stream setback in the GR2 single-family district in Girdwood, located at 195 Vale Drive. So the property owner is seeking to remodel the existing roof line to eliminate multiple drainage and snow sliding hazards that currently exist. The proposed design reduces the potential hazards from those snow slides and large drainage events. It'll reorganize the roof structure and create an accessible covered entry while minimizing the impact to the creek setback. So the request is for the overhang and required support column only. The property owner has worked with the architect to position that support column on the existing driveway to minimize any creek vegetation disturbance. Findings of approval, the staff believes that Standard A has been met. The plan shows no additional vegetation disturbance within the 25-foot stream setback area. The proposed roof overhang and support column are within the existing gravel driveway. Staff finds Standard B has been met. The redesign of the roof and remodel associated with that preserves the single-family style home in character in Girdwood and still keeps with the comprehensive plan's standards for continuity and compatibility of structures. The residential character of small lots will not be disrupted by this requested variance. Standard C has been met. The owners are seeking a variance to correct a hazardous roof line situation and improve the overall design of the structure. There is no impact to the existing vegetation within that stream setback. Standard D has been met. It will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property if granted. There are no structure separation violations. Watershed Management Services has requested a condition be placed that there be no paved driveway within the 25-foot stream setback area and that no erosion from roof runoff takes place in the stream setback. Standard E has been met. The request is for a dimensional encroachment into the stream and not a variance from prohibited use. Standard F has been met. The variance is not related to ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. However, the proposed remodel will incorporate a new grade level covered drive and entryway. Standard G has been met. There are no identified health or safety issues with this property. And Standard H in regards to sign has been met as there is not related to the signs. With that being said, the department recommendation for AMC 2103-240 requires that the variance requests meet all 8 of the approved criteria in order to be for a variance to be granted. The department finds that the approval criteria are met, and therefore we recommend approval of the variance subject to the conditions found on page 5 of the staff packet, and that includes Watershed Management Services recommended conditions, which are 3 and 4. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and the petitioner's representative is here tonight as well. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff? None. Oh, my apologies, Commissioner Miller.
That's all right, thank you. In regards to Standard C, proposed alternative results and benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. This might be a little bit nitpicky, but is this standard even applicable?
Through the Commissioner, Mr. Miller, one could argue that. However, I feel that the way staff answered that, there's no impact. Basically, not all these questions can fit every variance does not fit within all 8 of these standards. So therefore, some of them are limited in impact to that.
Okay, that's enough, thanks.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you. Just a quick question on the floodplain. I know this is an unnamed creek. It has a 25-foot setback. Is there a floodplain associated with it?
To my knowledge, Watershed Management Services, they didn't mention anything about it, so it's just pretty much that stream setback. However, the petitioner's representative may know a little more and be able to answer that.
Okay. And was there any discussion about the existing driveway and how it almost touches the stream and how that is?
I believe, Watershed Management Services, since that's not paved, that they're okay with that as it's existing
Okay.
before
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Doesn't appear there are any other questions of staff. Will the petitioner please come forward? Please state and spell your name for the record, and if you would like to reserve any of your 10 minutes for rebuttal.
My name is Skip Bartow, the owner. Last name Bartow. And with me is Mark Ivy with Ivy and Associates, who did the architectural designs and plans for this feature and structure that we're working on. In essence, what we have is a typical Girdwood cabin of, I'm going to say, approximate age.
I'm sorry. Can you move the microphone a little bit higher?
Yeah, I'm going to say that this is a typical Girdwood cabin of approximate age, I'm going to say 40 years, that started off as a small cabin, has been built upwards 2 to 3 times, laterally 2 to 3 times, and we've ended up with a structure that we now use as a secondary home with numerous issues that we're trying to resolve, and a lot of those are snow shed issues that prevent us from entering our house except for one small area. It makes our garage completely useless because we have snow shed right in front of it, and pretty much I would say 75% of the house is a safety issue all the way around. Our goal was to preserve the house because we have history in it and come up with an architectural design that would work to not only accentuate what we have and the community and the property around, but give us something that we can enjoy for a long time. That's how we got involved with Mark, and he's come up with some, in my opinion, some brilliant plans and what's hopefully going to be a beautiful end result. As we mentioned, the drive path, this is all gravel currently. There is no plan to pave what's in the 25-foot setback where this structural support would be for this new roof line that's in question in variance. Yep, anything you want to add?
So staff pretty much covered it.
I'm sorry, can you please speak into the mic?
Staff pretty much covered it.
Oh, and state your name and spell
Mark
it.
Ivy,
Spell your name.
Mark, Markivy.
Thank you.
So that a brief history is the Bartows have enjoyed years of utilizing the inside of the cabin, but they've had concerns on the exterior due to life safety issues with snow sliding, and it's pretty clear from these images, as Skip mentioned, as snow's directed right on the vehicles as they pull up, and you can't use the garage on the left side because snow comes from 2 directions and covers the door. So aside from snow sliding, there's concerns for ice buildup over, the winter as we have Chinooks. The rain intrusion into the siding because of the lack of overhangs has been a problem with maintaining finishes. So when the Bartows came to me, they asked a question. One was, do we tear it down or do we remodel? I'm one that likes to not take viable structures and put them in the landfill. So I asked if I could take a run at seeing if we could reconfigure the problem areas and breathe new life into the structure. So the challenge was reconfiguring the roofs to preserve the existing structure and then maintain the setbacks from the lot parameters, and then also stay within the limits of the lot coverage. And then another factor was trying to save these two beautiful spruce trees on the south side of the lot adjacent to the creek and on the approach to the driveway. And then if that wasn't enough, we end up with a creek setback challenge as well. So to try to tie all these roofs together and support it, I pulled every trick out of my bag of tricks to try to do sky hooks and cantilevers, and I couldn't pull it off, so we ended up with a post. And so that's part of the variance request. So the result of this design, which transforms this structure from this to this, you can see that all the pitches went the other way, so now when you approach the building, there's no chance of anybody getting injured or concern for pets and family members getting harmed from snow and rain sliding. So we also were able to update the aesthetics per the request of the owner, reduce maintenance, as I mentioned, and then preserve the structure. But the most important thing in my mind was preserve the memories of the cabin, because they've had a lengthy experience enjoying that. So that was the goal. Any questions?
My apologies. I'm sick.
I did another board here to kind of clarify where the I don't know if you can see this from a distance. I tried to throw a little color at it so you can tell where the setback is, where the, can you see that okay? So the yellow line indicates the conditioned building space. The green line, this one here, represents the creek setback, and the red line represents the overhang in the creek setback. So there's no conditioned space in the creek setback or within the side yard setback requirements. So it's a pretty gentle intrusion.
Okay, thank you. You have 4 minutes and 32 seconds for rebuttal if necessary. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Oh, yes. Commissioner Sullivan?
I have a first question. I think you're changing the house. It's beautiful. My question is, could you solve the problem without encroaching with that column footing? I mean, or this is like to solve the aesthetic problem of the house, well, to solve this as the solution, the aesthetic solution of the house. I mean, there was another solution that you needed to extend and encroach?
Well, what the result was when we previously, as I showed in that other image where the stairs went up to the second floor, we were trying to get the entrance on the grade floor for accessibility. So we couldn't go straight in, so we had to go to the side because there's bedroom and bathroom there. So when we went to the side, we needed to put a roof on it. So then if you cut the roof off to get out of the setback, you were just putting water right on the new entry.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you. That's a good explanation. It's just that I couldn't see a roof plan,
Yeah.
and that was hard to understand.
We tried.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice roof lines. I mean, it's an interesting design, and it looks cool from the road. I have a couple of questions. You heard of the floodplain one. Do you guys know if there is a floodplain associated with the creek?
To my knowledge, there isn't.
Not that
Skip
I'm aware
has
of.
history. There was a discussion with flood department, and they went down and he looked at pictures that I had taken, and he noticed there was a vegetation change between the immediate high water line and where the driveway is, and thought there might be, but apparently through their review process, there was no history.
Okay.
A pretty hard edge creek. It's almost vertical.
Okay.
There isn't any sign of erosion.
Okay. How much do you use that existing parking space that's there, that's gravel?
We really don't use it much at all. It's been used, sometimes snow is pushed around over in that area, but it's been there since I've known the property. I married into the property because my wife owned it before me. So beyond that, we really don't use it because we go down in one or two vehicles, so.
Okay, and then on the maneuvering underneath the roof line on the south, it looks tight. Is there clearance between, on that corner that's in the creek setback for, let's say, a SUV or a minivan to maneuver and park?
I wish it was higher. We're going to, we had some elevation shots, so the driveway will be warped down, but it'll be about 8 feet to the bottom of the beam on the far right side.
So where the post is will be 8 feet? Okay, so you'll lift it from what we're seeing here. Okay, and then,
As you know, they plow driveways down there with front-end loaders rather than pickup trucks.
yeah,
The hope here is they don't have to use, they just backblade as opposed to push through.
Gotcha.
So that'll have less impact on the creek because we won't be able to push the snow where it formerly was. So.
Staff condition number 4 is no erosion will result from the roof runoff entering the 25-foot stream setback area. The drawings that we have don't address actually where the water is going, let alone erosion. So you're, what it looks like from the plan here is the, let's see here, the south half of the building is shedding to the southwest corner of the building. Is that right?
That's correct. So those red dashed lines,
Yep.
that's the valley, so the water will,
And that's a half of the building or a quarter of the building?
probably more like a tenth of the building.
Oh, a tenth of the building.
It's not a significant, there's an opening in the roof right in this area, so it's really just this collected amount.
Oh, so the upper roof doesn't shed onto the lower roof?
No,
It sheds onto a different portion? Okay. So a portion of it
take
just
that
shed.
back, part of it will, but yeah, it'll probably be more like,
Okay, so like a quarter of the building?
yeah, less
Okay.
than a quarter.
Yeah, just didn't see, so your thoughts on that, on how to address that is what?
Well, typically, I'm kind of known for water features, so I call it a water feature opportunity, so bouldering and a way to disperse the water so it doesn't create an erosion event. So that's the plan. We're landing it near the roots of those two large spruce trees, so we're going to have to pay attention to that so we don't compromise their.
Yeah, that might be a challenge to not drown the spruce trees with a bunch of water and, yeah. Okay, good, thank you. I might have some questions after this next step. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now open the hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify? Okay. Does the petitioner wish to rebut on any of the conversation, discussion that's happened thus far? Are there any more questions of staff by the commission or Commissioner Leonetti?
Thanks. Mr. Ivy, another question for you. Interested in your guys' thoughts on removing the parking space and adding green space. Yeah, if you could respond to that, that'd be great.
You're talking about the existing parking towards
Yes.
the creek? I'm fine with it.
I have no problem with that, because as you said, it's going to be a little tight in there anyway, and we don't have the vehicles to park in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll probably just end up being natural vegetation, as it pretty much is now. So it shows it on there, but it's so blended in with weeds and natural vegetation right now that you can't truly differentiate what is drawn out from, it's just kind of blended in over time. Yeah.
Okay, so part of the new construction would be to not add gravel to make that parking space.
Correct. I think we're just pointing out that that is somewhat existing currently, but I don't have any plans to utilize that because we've never really used it in the past. So that whole area in there would probably be, because that'll be pretty much kind of a backyard for us. So,
Okay, great.
yeah, no, I have no problem with that, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions for the petitioner, so the public hearing is now closed. If someone can please give me a motion. I have a motion from Jill Miller and a second from Monica Sullivan. Commissioner Miller, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thanks. I move to approve case number 2018-0064, variance from AMC 21.07.020B.4.A for a roof overhang and support column to encroach into the 25-foot stream setback in the GR2, single-family, two-family residential district.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
I support Joe Miller motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Miller, do you have any findings of facts that you would like to add or anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I do. I plan on supporting this motion. And for findings, and just for our petitioners, for a variance, we have to agree with the staff findings or modify them accordingly. So I've got about 3 pages that I'm going to read. In condition A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard to the same or better degree than the subject standard. I find the standard is met. The proposed roof configuration will direct snow and drainage away from where it could be hazardous to the property owner. The plan shows no additional vegetation disturbance within the 25-foot stream setback area. The proposed roof overhang and support column are within an existing gravel driveway. The proposed alternative achieves the intent of the design standard to the same degree. Standard B. The proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. I find that the standard is met. The requested variance achieves the goals and policies of the Girdwood area plan to the same degree or better degree than the subject standard. The redesign of the roof and remodel associated preserves the single-family style homes in Girdwood and still keeps with the comprehensive plan standards to continuity and compatibility of structures on same or adjoining lots. The residential character of small lots will not be disrupted by the requested variance. The Girdwood area plan states, perpetuate Girdwood's small-town atmosphere, preserve the valley's natural environment, and avoid placement of buildings in natural hazard areas. Standard C. The proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. The standard is met. The owners are seeking a variance to correct a hazardous roof line situation and improve the overall design of the structure. The proposed alternative of a new roof design will benefit the community to the same degree as there is no impact to the existing vegetation within the stream setback. The property owners will correct a hazardous situation and improve the design of the structure. I'd also like to add to that I wasn't quite sure if this was applicable, but I assume you might get visitors or mail every once in a while. So in that regards, it does benefit the community. Substandard D, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. The standard is met. The requested variance will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property if granted. There are no structure separation violations. The request for variance is for the overhang and support column. There will be no impact to the stream, which is adjacent to the property. Watershed Management Services has requested a condition be placed that there be no paved driveway within 25 feet of the stream setback area, and that no erosion from roof runoff take place in the stream setback. Standard E, the variance, if granted, does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located, is in keeping with the intent of the code, and does not permit a use not otherwise permitted in the district in which the property lies. I find this standard is met. The requested variance will not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located. The request is for a dimensional encroachment into the stream setback and not a variance for prohibited use. The remodel of the home will meet all applicable zoning standards. Standard F, persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and reasonable accommodations. The standard is met. The variance is not related to ADA, accessibility, or reasonable accommodation. The proposed remodel will incorporate a new grade level covered driveway and entry. Standard G. The variance, if granted, does not adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the people of the municipality. I find the standard is met. There are no identified health or safety issues with this property. The owner is seeking relief for a roof overhang and support column encroachment into the 25-foot stream setback in the GR2 district. Standard H, in evaluating the request for a variance from the maximum sign height, the Urban Design Commission may consider whether there are special topographic circumstances that would result in material impairment of visibility of the sign from the adjacent roadway, which significantly diminishes the owner or user's ability to continue to communicate adequately and effectively with the public through the use of the sign. I don't believe there is a sign associated with this. The standard is met. This standard is not applicable because it is not related to signs. And I'm not quite sure if I remember to add that this is subject to staff conditions 1 through 4.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there, looks like there's more discussion on this motion. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I intend to support the motion with an additional condition of approval, and I'd like to make a motion to add it, which I will get a second after I say it, hopefully. And I believe that the petitioner has done a good job on solving the problem, on making the residents safer. However, I don't believe that there's been any sort of motion to, or any sort of action to improve the creek setback. And they're encroaching into it, and that's all they're doing. And I think that it would be very helpful for the stream, which is what is being infringed upon here, to have more vegetation and being more in tune with what the standard is met. So I'd like to add a condition that says, condition number 5, remove the existing gravel parking area in the stream setback and replace with natural landscaping in accordance with L1 landscaping per Title 21. And I don't have my book, but the standard of L1 landscaping, which has square footage requirements. Anybody care to second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen. Should I discuss?
Commissioner Leonetti, can I try to repeat this back and you correct me?
Sure.
Okay. So adding condition 5, remove the existing gravel parking area and replace with vegetation. Did you say something more specific to vegetation?
I said remove existing gravel parking area in the stream setback and then replace with natural landscaping in accordance with L1 landscaping in Title 21. I don't know the code reference. I think it's 2105.070, but that could be way off.
Okay. So condition number 5, remove the existing gravel parking area in the stream setback and replace with landscaping in accordance with L1 landscaping in Title 21.
Yep.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and make that motion? And do we have a second? Okay, so we have a motion to amend to add condition 5. Do I have to state it again? By Commissioner Leonetti and a second by Commissioner Cohn. Is there any objection to adding condition 5? Is there any discussion? We should vote on the amendment.
Did you have a question? Mr. Miller had a question.
My apologies. Commissioner Miller.
That's all right. I'm just kind of curious. I'm not sure what is gained from taking that small area of gravel and basically landscaping it. I don't think it really does anything for the riparian corridor. It's their own private property, so I'm having trouble supporting that just because I don't see a substantial benefit for the cost.
Yeah, the thought behind it is that there's an encroachment into the setback. The existing property encroaches basically right up to the creek, right directly adjacent to the creek, and the purpose of the 25-foot setback is to not encroach on the stream and the corridor, and the property is basically doing that. And the idea here is that, sure, encroach 8 feet and replace with, and it sounds like it might be already there, half of it anyway. Some of the pictures look like there's some existing vegetation that's close. So I think that the remainder of it, and if they don't use it, then it restores the creek back to its original intention of having that buffer adjacent to residential. That's the intention.
Okay. I believe wasn't that gravel area there before the roof changes occurred?
Yes.
Okay. No more questions.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Cash?
Yes, my question is related to the fact that it was existing, and at the time that they acquired the property, it was there. It has remained there. It's growing back. They don't use it much. I'm not certain. It seems like it's well intended, but I'm not certain the clear basis for it in terms of regulations. So I'm a little lost as to how we do that when it's not required because it was existing to remove it. So I'm just asking for clarification. I'm not clear on imposing a new requirement to something that was existing that's not being touched.
I think that the intention that if it's existing and therefore it's in compliance is a inaccurate assumption. Just because it's existing doesn't make it in compliance. And I think that the purpose of the 25-foot setback is to allow for vegetative buffering and to allow for runoff. I mean, I think there's going to be a substantial amount of runoff from this roof line into that area, and it aids in that. It gives them more ability to buffer the runoff from the stream. And it's probably been there for 38 years. It looks like on these drawings that it's going to remain and it's a new driveway or it's going to be reestablished and used. The petitioner said that they were not going to use it. So in my mind, then why have it there? Revegetate it and put it back to a nice natural buffer, and the intent of the code is there, and they can still use their property. They can have their encroachment, and it seems to be a win-win.
Are there any other questions or comments, discussions? Commissioner Winchester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't intend to support the amendment, and my reasons are similar to what you say. I think we set a precedent for sort of putting ourselves in a position of making decisions about the situation where it is existing condition in a 25-foot setback, yes, but to now sort of put that on top of this, there's nothing in regulation that actually says we should be going around and doing that. So I'm not going to support the amendment. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan?
I would like to know what the staff thinks about this issue.
Through the chair, Ms. Sullivan, Watershed Management Services didn't weigh in on anything about requesting. They just basically have the two no pavement, which is impervious. So I believe they feel the gravel is porous and therefore meets their standards. And then they just had the no erosion as from a direct, runoff right into the stream. So if I can't speak for WMS, but if they didn't make any comment about that gravel porous surface, I feel that, and it sounds like the petitioner is amenable to just letting that go back to natural vegetation, that kind of is, the issue is solved.
Thank you. Would it be okay if we recommend that they move it?
Oh, to change it to just remove it and not add vegetation?
Just to recommend.
Oh,
Do it as a
recommend,
recommendation, and if they want to do it, they'll do it. And-
recommend removing existing gravel instead of just saying remove existing gravel?
Yes, a volunteer.
Sure. Can I amend my amend? Do I make that motion or does she? I think she does.
I would like to make a motion to amend the motion of adding the removal of the,
To add recommend in
Grab,
front
yeah.
of,
and I would like to just make it as a recommendation.
Okay, so there is an amendment to the amendment on the floor. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Sullivan and a second from Commissioner Miller, and this is a motion to amend the amendment to revise the new Condition 5 to state, recommend that the petitioner remove the existing gravel parking area and replace with landscaping that will assist with erosion from roof runoff. Is that okay?
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, can we get a vote on the amendment to the amendment? Okay, that the amendment to the amendment passes. Can I get a motion to amend to the amendment?
A vote?
A vote for the amendment, the original amendment to the motion.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Cash, you have a question?
I do have a question. I'm just looking at it, and so this original way. You're right. There's my mic, sorry. This is the original language. So does it actually get changed here? It will. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, voting for the amended motion. Okay, now we are back to the main motion. Can I get a vote to approve the amended motion? Okay, that case passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, so we are moving on to the second case on our agenda for public testimony. This is case 2018-0076. We have petitioner David Braley before us. Can we get the staff's presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The petitioner is applying for a variance from Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 7, subsection 020B4, and Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 7, 020B6, to allow a hydroelectric utility substation and supporting infrastructure to be constructed entirely within a 50-foot stream protection setback. The petition site is located in the Eagle River and is zoned CER10. In accordance with Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 3, subsection 240G, the application must state with particularity the relief sought and must specify the facts or circumstances that are alleged to show that the application substantially meets the following standards. The Planning Department presents the following findings. For Standard A, we believe the standard is met. Due to the size of the site, its topography, in relation to existing power lines, the cost to deliver electric utilities to this site using underground cables would make any residential development on-site cost prohibitive and impractical. As such, the petitioner has decided to pursue the development of a hydroelectric utility on their property. Hydroelectric utilities, by their very nature, must be installed within or very near existing streams. Based on the information provided by the applicant, it appears that minimal disturbance and alteration to the creek bed will occur as a result of this project. This utility will be a run-of-river system which will not involve the construction of large dam walls or create a standing water reservoir near the site. Standard B, the standard is met. This parcel is classified as residential, less than one dwelling unit per acre in the 2006 Chugach River Comprehensive Plan Update Land Use Plan Map. The development of the hydroelectric facility and the resulting stream setback encroachment will not change the classification of this parcel in the comprehensive plan. The petitioner has future plans to develop a single-family residence on site that will serve as the primary use. Additionally, this project is compliant with the following goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. Goal 1.1a, Objective 1.2f, Goal 2.1b, and Objective 2.2a. Standard C, the standard is met. Unique factors such as lot size, steep topography, and the proximity to existing utilities greatly increase the challenge of delivering traditional underground electric utilities to this site. As such, the petitioner has decided to pursue the development of a hydroelectric generator on their property. Based on the information provided by the applicant, it appears that minimal disturbance and alteration to the creek bed will occur as a result of this project. The construction methods used by the applicant will construct the utility will be conducted in a manner that does not cause excessive disturbances to the natural stream course, creek bed, or increase the flood risk for downstream properties. Nearby residents and the community will benefit from this unique project, which brings specialized employment opportunities to Chugach Eagle River. Standard D, the standard is met. The installation of this facility will not adversely affect the use of adjacent properties. It will enhance the ability of this parcel to accommodate existing and future single-family homes. Visual impacts from this project will be minimal given its placement within a deep canyon. Standard E, the standard is met. This hydroelectric project will not change the character of the CER10 district where this project is located. The petitioner has explored several options to deliver underground electric utilities to this site, but the cost of doing so exceeds the value of the property itself. Given that it is cost prohibitive to deliver conventional electric utilities to this site, the petitioner is severely limited on developing this property for a single-family home. Utility substations are allowed in all residential zoning districts subject to a conditional use approval. As a condition of approval, the the petitioner shall be required to obtain a conditional use approval from Planning and Zoning Commission for the use of a hydroelectric utility substation before this variance shall take effect. Standard F, the standard is met. The variance does not involve ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. In standard G, the standard is partially met. Information provided in the application states that a spillway failure would have negligible effects on downstream properties due to the design of the hydro facility. Although flooding may not be a concern, there is the potential that adjacent properties may be adversely affected from excessive noise and vibration from this project. Comments received from the Department of Health and Human Services have raised this concern. Prolonged exposure to excessive noise or vibration has the potential to cause negative health effects to humans and animals. This hydroelectric utility substation will be constructed within a 400-foot deep canyon. The extreme topography surrounding this site may cause noise amplification by concentrating the direction of sound waves in one direction. To mitigate this concern, the petitioner shall submit a noise and vibration study to the Department of Health and Human Services for review. And standard H, the standard is met. This variance does not involve a sign. Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 3, Subsection 240 requires that the variance request substantially meet all 8 of the design variance standards in order for a variance to be granted. The department finds that standards A, B, C, D, F, E, and H are met, and standard G is only partially met. Therefore, recommends denial of the variance. If, after a public hearing, the Commission finds that all 8 approval criteria are met, then the approval should be subject to the following conditions as shown on page 8 of the staff packet. And I will just note that standard G, where it was partially met, the condition number 4 on page 8 of the staff packet, if Health and Human Services, upon review of the sound and vibration study, finds that there is no impact, that standard will be substantially met. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Miller?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 things. I didn't see it in the staff packet, but has this project, and I don't know if it's required, but has this project been reviewed by the Watershed Natural Resources Commission? And has it been reviewed by the Geotechnical Advisory Commission? And let me add a caveat to that second question. The geotechnical report was conducted by Shannon Wilson and stamped by Kyle Brennan, who is the chair of the Geotechnical Advisory Commission. So if it would have had to go through that commission, he probably would have brought that to the attention of the petitioner. But I want to get on record and ask a question.
Through the chair, Commissioner, perhaps the petitioner could answer that question for you. I'm not aware of it going to either of those commissions. It's not required for this particular entitlement. That I will also note that there are 2 other entitlements in process right now. There is a conditional use permit that's being heard by Planning and Zoning Commission related to this case on Monday, and there's also a steep slope variance being heard by Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday for this project as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It doesn't appear as though there are any other questions of staff.
Just one other question, please, Madam Chair. You had said, right at the end of the staff report, you had said that because of, if you could just clarify what you said at the end, that it sounded like the one condition that was not met, something changed and now you believe it is met?
Oh, through the chair, Commissioner, yeah, I apologize if I confused you at all. I did add a condition, so it'd be condition number 4 on page 8 of the staff packet. Department of Health and Human Services had a concern that there'd be excessive noise or vibration generated from this project. So in order for the variance to take effect, I added that condition on there that they submit to Health and Human Services a noise and vibration study. And upon their review, if they find that there isn't going to be a significant impact, then essentially that concern of any adverse impacts from noise or vibration would essentially go away.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff? Commissioner Winchester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to follow up on that question, do you know if the petitioner has agreed to that study? Have you had a conversation about that with them?
Through the chair, Commissioner, I have, and I believe the petitioner can probably go into more detail on that, but the petitioner is aware.
But you have, okay, so you have had the conversation with them. Sometimes these things show up and they don't know anything about it, so I'm asking ahead of time in our own minds that they do know about it. Thank you.
I've got a question. Just looking at under the findings, Goal 2.1b, ensure that development plans adequately address or offset impacts on the environment. And then looking at the plans, it's unclear. It says it's unclear from the record whether there is anadromous fish habitat on Juniper Creek. Could you just comment a little bit on, what is the characteristics of the creek? Does it have fishery potential of any kind, or from the photos it looks pretty steep, but just without actually seeing the site, just curious to know a little bit more about what the character of that creek is, and if there's any concern at all about there being any fish or other aquatic resources, how those are addressed in the design.
Thank you. Through the chair, Commissioner, the petitioner is working with Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm not sure if U.S. Fish and Wildlife is involved in any way, but the petitioner is seeking the appropriate review and approvals from wildlife management agencies to ensure that there won't be any negative impacts to fish habitat, wildlife habitat, anything of that nature. But yes, it is a very steep site and is unlikely to support salmon habitat being the big one.
Commissioner Sullivan.
I'm not sure if this question was already there, but what if the results for the vibration study are not acceptable? What happens then?
Through the chair, Commissioner, if the results are unacceptable to Health and Human Services, then it's essentially a condition that the petitioner cannot satisfy. Therefore, the variance would not be effective.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cash.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a clarification on the previous question that the report from the Department of Fish and Game regarding the fish in that stream is on page 39.
Thank you. Are we reviewing this? Should I give you a minute to read this? We're all looking down. Commissioner Leonetti, did you want to say something?
Just to clarify, the reason for denial is G is the G question, right? Because it's partially met in noise. All the other conditions staff believes is adequate and meets the intent.
Through the chair, Commissioner, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I believe we have asked all the questions of staff. Will the petitioner please come forward? And remember to please state your name and spell your name.
David Braley, Brailey, last name.
And would you like to reserve time for rebuttal?
Yes, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a short discussion here, but before I go into that, I just wanted to clarify one point. The proposal as listed on page 3 of the staff packet at the very bottom, last sentence says, supporting infrastructure to be constructed entirely within the 50-foot stream setback. That's not correct. If you were to look at page 149, that's one of the engineering plan sheets that shows the stream setback, but we took great pains during design to try to stay out of the stream setback. But of course, there's a couple of locations where we need to cross it, but most of this facility is outside the setback. There are a couple of design elements that are within the setback. And you can see those on the engineering plans, pages 145 through 150. So this variance application is the outgrowth of the conditional use permit process, which began with my pre-application meeting in August 2017. In January of this year, the planning department determined that this variance would be required in addition to my conditional use permit and a variance to the steep slope rules that will be considered by planning and zoning on Monday. The subject property is a 160-acre parcel located at the 2,000-foot elevation near the Eagle River Visitor Center in the R10 zoning district. Although this property was homesteaded in the 1960s and currently supports a 360-square-foot off-grid cabin, residential development has been hampered by the length of utility extensions required to develop the property. Because of the Title 21 steep slope rules, the only developable home site is located more than 3,500 feet from the nearest utility infrastructure. And due to the new Title 21 undergrounding requirements, the cost of installing electric service alone is more than the assessed value of the property. Despite these problems, the property contains an outstanding natural resource that can be used to overcome its utility infrastructure limitation while benefiting the community by providing clean, renewable energy. The existing South Fork Hydro, which is currently operating on the South Fork of Eagle River, same watershed, provides 1.1 megawatts of renewable energy at a fixed cost of 7 cents per kilowatt hour, which is less than half of what MEA ratepayers pay. The cost savings goes to MEA, and because MEA is a cooperative, the cost savings benefit ratepayers. This project will have a similar economic structure where excess power will be sold to MEA at about half of the residential purchase price. Revenue from the MEA grid connection will finance project construction costs with a payoff period of about 10 years. In addition to saving ratepayers money, the project will benefit the community by displacing 1.8 million pounds of carbon dioxide emissions per year, as well as mercury, nitrogen, and sulfur dioxide emissions. This is going to reduce air pollution, reduce climate change impacts, diversify Anchorage's energy portfolio, advance the state's energy policy objectives, and provide local tax revenue. And these points are summarized on page 21. Unlike most large hydro projects, this is a run-of-river hydro, which means that the water is diverted through a pipe and returned to the stream without storing or impounding it along the way. This maintains the hydrologic and sediment transport functions of the stream. Because no water is stored, there's no risk of flooding to downstream properties, which is documented with a quantitative analysis that begins on page 120 of the staff packet. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game has determined through a site inspection that there's no fish presence on the property, and we've developed a water quality management program to ensure that downstream fish habitat is not affected by construction activities. The monitoring plan is provided on page 124, and the Department of Fish and Game has reviewed this plan and agrees that it should be protective of fish habitat, downstream fish habitat. Oh, and by the way, the Juniper Creek is not anadromous fish habitat per the Anadromous Waters Catalog. By design, the project includes a host of preventative measures to mitigate adverse environmental impacts. These measures are described on pages 24 through 26 of the staff packet. I'll just highlight a couple of these measures here.
The intake spillway will be constructed of steel sheet pile in order to minimize the volume, footprint, and duration of stream disturbance. The intake will also be constructed between April 15th and June 1st, hopefully of next year, when the flow rate in Juniper Creek is less than 1 cubic feet per second. This allows it to be diverted through an 8-inch diameter pipe during construction. We're also minimizing ground disturbance by using a helicopter to deliver all the pipe and concrete, by using a narrow 5-foot wide trap vehicle for long-term maintenance, which allows us to minimize the access trail width, minimizing the volume and footprint of disturbance to steep slopes and riparian habitat. And again, there's other steps to minimize adverse impacts are described, pages 24 to 26. So the planning department has determined that I've substantially met all of the variance approval criteria with a partial exception of standard G. Noise impacts, this was simply an oversight on my part due to my familiarity with hydro projects, which most people, when they hear the word turbine, they think of aircraft turbines, helicopter turbines, or natural gas-fired power generation turbines. Those type of turbines make noise by the burning of the fuel and the exhaust gases that race through the turbine. Hydro turbines consist of, for this hydro turbine will consist of 2 water jets inside a cast iron housing that squirt at a bronze wheel that spins inside this metal housing that's connected to a generator. And according to the manufacturer, the sound level at 3 feet from the equipment is 85 decibels, which is about the same as being inside a commercial airline cabin at cruising altitude, not taking off or landing. So it's not a loud noise, and that's inside the building. So this is going to have a concrete building surrounding it, which should be able to knock off at least 30 decibels of noise. So it's going to reduce the sound outside the building down to ambient levels, which is about 55 decibels as measured in the field last weekend. We also I have spoken with Shelley Griffiths. She's the author of the comments from Health and Human Services, and I've described to her the data that we've collected so far and our plans for the sound study, which we will complete, and she's entirely agreeable with that. And by way of brief summary, we measured the sound of the creek, and at 6 feet above ground level, the sound of the creek is 87 decibels, which is louder than the power generation equipment at 3 feet inside the building. We did measure sound all the way up the canyon wall to the rim, and the sound level decreased. There's no amplification of sound as you approach the top of the canyon. And the background sound level at the top of the canyon is about 55 decibels. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Commissioner Winchester.
So just to confirm, you have no problem with condition number 4?
Of the, on page 8.
Recommendation.
Yes, no problem with that whatsoever.
It didn't sound like it, but I wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this question I don't think has any relevance to the variance, but I'm kind of curious. If this is a run-of-the-river hydro project, how is that affected by winter stream flow?
Yes, this is a really unique hydro in that Juniper Creek is a spring creek, and in addition to it being a spring creek which doesn't freeze, it flows open all winter long. There are springs which actually contribute about 24% of the entire basin discharge, and those springs all crop out on my property, and they have a water temperature of about 36 degrees year-round. It's a constant temperature. There's a temperature graph in the submittal packet. But yes, it flows all year round. The summertime energy production is about 300 kilowatts, and the wintertime at the winter low will be about 50 kilowatts.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a pretty amazing project that you have going here. It's pretty cool to see. Just a couple of simple questions. I understand that there's one building on there now, and it's a cabin, and you have 160 acres. And the future development, is it on the 160 acres, is it more than one building, or is it just one building?
What we'll have to do, what we'd like to do is build a house and live there. And so what we'll need to do is convert the cabin into a shop or non-residential dwelling. And then we can build a cabin at a home site, which is illustrated on the plans.
That's where the ellipse is. So basically, one residence, maybe one or two buildings. It's not going to be multiple units that are spread across 160 acres that the power is going to be supplied to in addition to MEA?
Yeah, code doesn't allow that. Code allows one primary residence, nothing else.
Okay.
Unless we were to subdivide, which is a whole other host of problems.
Right. Okay, good. I didn't see any sort of, these plans are a little bit complicated to read because of their size. I didn't see any sort of a re-veg plan. I know some of it's going to be drilled and some of it's above. I presume there's going to be a re-veg plan?
There will. That's part of the construction building permit that we're preparing right now.
Okay.
So there's a grading permit and a re-veg plan as part of that.
Okay, so I didn't miss something in here that is a re-veg plan?
No, that'll be part of the...
and that will be within the stream corridor?
The construction is both within and outside of the stream corridor. And there'll be revegetation outside of the stream corridor as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Winchester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so just for my own clarification too, basically the financing for this, if it was clear here, is that you're paying for they are hooking this up to MEA and you will be selling power back to MEA?
Yes.
Okay. So that corridor that the power line is going on is part of this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It does not appear there are any. Commissioner Cohn?
I'm just curious, having just last week had a chance to visit the Eielson Visitor Center in Denali National Park, which has a run-of-river hydro system.
Huh.
If you're familiar with that system, or
I haven't seen it, no.
How similar that is, or how many other examples of this are there in Alaska, and are there lessons learned?
Yeah, well, we have lots of hydros, obviously, within the state, lots of large hydros, but probably the most, a really good analog is the one on the South Fork of Eagle River. Same watershed, same zoning district, but that hydro is about 4 times the size of mine. It's similar, it's located down in the bottom of the canyon, but that system was just came online about 4 years ago, and they got a conditional use permit to do it. I went through the conditional use process, and nobody really knows it's there. It's surprising because nobody can see it. Just like mine, you won't be able to see it. You really can't hear it. It just basically provides a good deal to MEA ratepayers, and nobody knows it's there. But that's kind of the best example, or best analog I can think of, because it's invisible. We have lots of other hydros like Terror Lake and Solomon Gulch that you can see the big penstocks and dams and all sorts of things like that, but we don't have any dam per se. It's just a spillway. Doesn't impound any water.
Okay. Okay, doesn't seem like there's any other questions of the petitioner, so we will now open the hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify? Oops. If you could please state and spell your name.
Name is Aaron Brown, A-A-R-O-N, last name Brown, like the color. I think you addressed a lot of the concerns that I had, especially about noise ongoing in the future. I guess my only remaining concern is the noise and the the activity going on during the construction phase as one of the downstream property owners. That would be my concern, that I don't have helicopters flying over our property, every day for however long it takes to build the project. So that was my question, comment.
So your question, asking the petitioner,
Maybe you could just speak to the construction phase and what sort of noise and activity I could expect during the construction. So.
Okay, if the petitioner would like to answer this question, this would be on your rebuttal time. Not now?
Yeah, as far as the helicopter work.
During your rebuttal time, my apologies. Thank you. I think there was someone else who would like to speak. Can you come up and please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is David Owens, O-W-E-N-S. I'm one of the property owners up toward the Mariah Drive near the property. My concern was we had testimony at the Eagle River Community Center. They actually were talking about this testimony on this event. One of the issues I asked was a question on how the power line was going to be delivered. I was told that they're bringing in 40-foot poles to put in to bring the power up from the stream to his property. And just to let you know where his property is, it's the borderline on Chugach State Park on Ram Valley. So it's one of the prettiest valleys in the entire Chugach range. And during the questioning, of course, he said that it wouldn't be visible, but I've been hiking back up there. I've lived in the mountain for 25 years, and that valley, it will be visible if he puts those poles in. So that's what you're talking about. You're talking about putting power line poles, a lot of construction, right next to Chugach State Park. And I also have a concern about the sound. I live up there, I've been there 25 years, and I didn't move up there so I could hear a vibration. So I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I start with my name.
And spell your name for the record.
I'll have to. My name is Jacinta Mazzetti. It's spelled J-A-C-I-N, like Nancy, T-H-A. That's my first name. My last name is M, like Michael, E-Z-Z-E-T-T-I.
Thank you.
I'm used to spelling my name. Okay, so I just wanted to say, I know that the stream, the creek itself is loud. Niagara Falls is loud. I'd rather listen to Niagara Falls rather than a motor. And I really have deep concerns about the vibrations because it is one of the prettiest. I mean, Eagle River is gorgeous, but I, not recently, have hiked up Ram Valley, and it is an exhilarating, extraordinarily beautiful hike. And I'm concerned that, and because an LLC, he has created an LLC in order to partially protect himself from liability because of the easement to the trailhead. And so when you're protecting yourself from liability because if somebody hurts, he's worried that they will sue him. He has mentioned this in conversations on Facebook. You're also protecting yourself from your neighbors because you are an anonymous LLC. You are not a neighbor anymore. And we're all neighbors. I'm a property owner up there, have been since 2002. I don't want we don't have a homeowners association that has dues. We don't, our neighborhood is not an LLC, so what recourse do we have if something goes wrong with this? Moreover, we're setting up something that's going to last. I mean, 30 years from now, there's still going to be that thing up there. What if it becomes a behemoth monstrosity? Who's going to pay to remove it and restore everything to the way it's supposed to be? So we're doing something now, and we're not looking towards the future and what impact it might have in the future. I also wanted to address the fact that this technology might be state-of-the-art right now. What happens when it becomes outdated? Business owners either sell businesses or die, or both. What's going to happen when somebody else owns this? So because it's not a homeowner owning it, it is a corporation owning this. It's an LLC. That's it for now, I suppose. Will I be able to come back up if I think of something else that I meant to say? Or am I done if I sit down?
You have 10 seconds left.
Oh, all right. Goodbye.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Howard Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R, Howard spelled the way it's always spelled. I'm a property owner in this area, and in fact, I'm the property owner who's immediately downstream from this. The vibration, the noise, is most directly going to affect me. The visual is most directly going to affect me. I have put in all my utilities underground. There are other places up there. It's not that putting underground power is economically not feasible. The whole point of this is to make money, to sell power back. Now, I will say there's a lot of material that is on this project. In some places, it talks about a single-family house, and somebody asked a question, and then I hear the word lots. If you look in here, you'll see that it says somewhere on page 6, it talks about other lots. So I guess one thing that needs to be done is there a firm commitment that this will never be subdivided as a term and condition of allowing this public or this private utility to be installed in a neighborhood. As far as that creek goes, the location of this is probably a few hundred feet from where a grizzly bear and I had a little encounter about 4 or 5 years ago or somewhere in there. This stream bed is a major animal conduit. We have Dall sheep that I guess maybe they're called lambing grounds. They're right there. We got 2 kinds of bear. We got wolves, we got coyotes, we got lynx, we got owls. We have all kinds of things, and that's why some of us moved back there. If he builds this right in the corridor where all these animals travel back and forth on a daily basis, that's a major impact to the wildlife. I don't begrudge the members of the committee or whoever sat and looked and made these recommendations, but they never came up and looked at my property. Or if they did, they didn't ask me, so I don't know if they did or didn't. But there's a lot of wildlife there, and unless you live there 24/7, you wouldn't know that. The LLC comment is a valid one. We're all individuals who own our property, but this property uniquely is an LLC. One of my biggest concerns, though, is this above-ground transmission lines, and I will read to you the FERC.
I think you're out of time. Is there someone here who would like to? Commissioner Leonetti?
Mr. Mayor, can you continue explaining the above-ground transmission line you were describing, please?
My understanding of it, based upon the material here, is that the transmission line is going to start on one side of the creek, go over the creek, climb up a hill on his property, and then transition off of his property onto another next-door neighbor's property. And yet, when the application was made to the federal government, it said there would be a 1,700-foot-long, 13.8 kilovolt underground transmission line. Above ground is not underground, so I'm not sure which story I need to believe, the one that was told to the federal government or the one that's being laid out to you guys here today. So there's that aspect of things, and relative to this above ground, we were told at this Eagle River Community Council meeting there would maybe be 2 poles, and then it got up to 3 poles, and then some more questions were asked, and well, maybe there'll be more poles. Well, there's going to be more poles. If you look at the distance they're covering, there's going to be lots of structures going up. There'll be more than 2, that's for sure. There'll be 2, one on each side of the creek. So there's 2 right there. And then how do you get up the hill without more? And I told Mr. Braley at that meeting, you know, if you put it underground, I'm not going to complain about it. But if you block my view, yeah, I'm not a happy camper. So if he puts it underground, that's a whole different matter for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, sir. And please spell your name for the record.
Robert Furman, F-I-R-M-I-N. I guess Howard pretty much covered a lot of it. My concern was this variance that he wants for a creek setback. On my paperwork here, it says it encompasses 160 acres. Now, shouldn't it only read for the setback for the property for the project, not 160? Because I don't know how much creek frontage he has on his 160. I mean, it opens it up so that he's got a variance everywhere, doesn't it? Let's see, what else do I got? I don't know anything about an earthquake design. It'll only be 46 years from now. We'll have our 100-year anniversary from 1964, so that should be an issue. And I understand the concrete slab and whatnot, but I've never seen a soil analysis. I'm sure it's mostly rock up there, but a lot of the area is clay. So if you got any amount of vibration, any kind of flex, thawing, freezing, you raise the issue of flood. Now, I don't recall what year it was, but it was back in the 80s. But we did have a flood up there on that creek, and it washed out, took out the road at Prudhoe Bay where it goes by there. FEMA came in and did a redesign on it. And then when they did the road improvement here around 2003, the road boys, I'll put it this way, they messed with the design that FEMA did. And from what I went and talked to them, and from what my understanding is, if that road washes out again, FEMA, because it was to their design and it was altered, they won't fund any money to it. So if you have a flood caused from his dam up above and it comes through the creek, washes out the road, who's responsible? You can't sue an LLC, can you? By the way, I got to ask, what's LLC stand for?
Is it Limited Liability Corporation?
Oh, I thought it was a low-life.
I walked right into that one. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes? Okay, we have someone else coming up. Oh, we've got 2.
This was kind of short notice for me, but my name's Craig Walters, W-A-L-T-E-R-S, Craig. And I echo the same sentiments as Howard as far as the pristine, that's a beautiful valley and creek bed there. It's borders Chugach State Park fully, and the hike in there is one of the best we have here. And the Conservation Fund sold 160 acres through a broker deal to this homeowner. And I applaud Dave Riley for doing what he's doing up there. He's got a nice little home up there, a nice little ski chalet, and to get power up there is probably a huge endeavor. But he could get power up there. The adjacent property owners, Jake, directly below him has power, and I don't know the costs involved, but I know this project is much costlier than just running a single power line up into his property. And if he was going to do a small hydro project to provide power to his home and maybe his kid's home or something like that, I wouldn't be here. But I think this is too big of a project for that little creek. I know it's a small hydro project, but it's a beautiful little creek that's got super steep walls. And I see already, if you're walking in the hiking easement up there, you can already see some places that look like they're sloughing down into the stream, just from a little bit of activity that's going on there. It's super steep. And there's, like Howard said, it's a bare highway. You put a 24 by 30 structure in the middle of that, there's not much room to go around it, really. I mean, it's that tight in there. Right now, the Conservation Fund, who brokered this deal to sell that 160 acres up there, is now in a huge project at Eklutna Lake, removing a dam. That was a hydro project that turned out to be a boondoggle, and now they're spending millions to remove all that stuff that's there now. I don't know, it's a pristine valley. I think it's a special place, and I hope this doesn't disturb it, in the long run, and that's my concerns, I guess. As a local, I live below there myself as well. Spent a lot of time up in the valley.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Sullivan, did you have a question for?
I have questions to the petitioner. I just wonder, what's your comments? Or
Commissioner Sullivan, would you mind if we waited till the end of public testimony?
Yep.
Thank you. Is there someone else who wishes to speak?
Hi, my name is Natalie Mazzetti, I'm so
Can you
sorry.
bring the microphone a little bit lower?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There you go.
Natalie I would just like to point out that on page 137, it says that the underground installation will require excessive disturbance to the environment. So I'm not quite sure why it was put forward as not requiring damage. And then, so environmental concerns are just obviously part of this. The creek that's in question is feeding into this waterfall that is like a beautiful landmark of our neighborhood. And this waterfall in turn, well, I guess the whole stream feeds into Eagle River, which is a salmon population. So, I mean, it may not have consequences, but if it does, who's monitoring those? Who's going to monitor and make sure that this construction isn't going on during salmon season? And then whether or not it is affecting the population. I've followed the waterfall all the way down to Eagle River, and it is, I mean, obviously just like a gorgeous place. So any disturbance to this waterfall, to the stream, is affecting so many people. Just to supply energy to one house, it seems kind of overkill to me. So, thank you.
Thank you. And please state your name and spell for the record.
Sure. My name is Teresa Poor, P-U-H-R. I live in just down from Dave Owens a little bit there in Howard. And I concur with everything that everybody said. And there was a couple things I was concerned about. Like if this passes, is this going to set a precedent for future activity along the creek for construction of other projects? That's a concern of mine. Also, a big thing here is people use this water from this creek. There's an area off Prudhoe Bay Road there that people go in and get their water because they don't have running water of their own, so they use this on a daily basis. And so there's a big concern with the integrity of the quality of the water that it not be messed with. And there was mention of a generator. Was that a generator to run the turbines?
The turbines turn the generator.
Okay. So there's no fuel being used? Okay. And somewhere, let's see, after the Eagle River Community Council meeting, there was discussion, more talk about this project, and the possible use of explosives was brought up, and I'm concerned about use of explosives in this project and what that repercussions of that could be. So those are some points that I didn't hear from the other folks. So I think that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darlis Meyer, D-A-R-L-I-S-M-E-Y-E-R. I just have two quick questions. One of them Terry talked about is, does this set a precedence if it's approved for anyone with property along the creek to start a hydro and do activity there? The other is in the documentation, it talks about monitoring the sediment at Prudhoe Bay, and the hydro project would be above that and go through our property, so it would need to be, the sediment would need to be monitored prior to our property than at Prudhoe Bay. So that would need to be a requirement also if it went through. But does it set a precedence if this goes through that everyone else on the creek also gets that? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? And, okay, so there's no one else that wishes to speak. Would the petitioner like to use their rebuttal time? No?
Is there another choice?
Is there another what?
Another
twist?
Another choice for me.
Choice.
Is there more questions?
You have 2 minutes and 10 seconds to respond to the questions, and then if we have other questions of you, we can ask those of you, and that's not included in this 2 minutes 10.
Yes, I'll use the 2 minutes. I'll try to address most of these points. I definitely appreciate everyone's concern about the impacts to the creek and the environment, and I think if you look closely at what I've proposed, you can see that we've taken great pains here to do this in as minimal way as possible. And that's outlined again in the mitigation section 24 to 26 of the staff packet. I'll just try to run through these quickly. In terms of the construction noise and impacts, we're going to try to complete all of the helicopter work in 1 day, obviously, because we have to use a really large helicopter that's super expensive. So we really can't afford to do this if it takes more than 2 days of helicopter time. So all the other construction noise, I really doubt that you're going to be able to hear it because we're down in this 400-foot deep canyon that's blocking the entire subdivision, doesn't have line of sight or line of sound to the construction site down in the canyon. Noise and vibration, again, I won't belabor that because I already addressed it, but I think for comparison, just consider the South Fork Hydro. That's 4 times the size of land, 4 times the energy production. People don't have any issue with noise coming from the South Fork Hydro, which is a very similar geographic setting, a very similar piece of property, same size as mine, as a matter of fact. The LLC issue, the reason that we own this property as an LLC is because we recorded a public access easement to Chugach State Park, 3/4 of a mile long, through our property to provide access to the public to the park. We granted that for free, didn't charge anything for it, but that's why we own it as an LLC, is to protect ourselves from liability. If someone should get, heaven forbid, killed by a bear on our property, then we're not going to be liable for it. And there's been bear maulings, as Howard can attest, right next to our property. As far as looking to the future, that's something that really, I think if you were to travel in Switzerland or Norway, I guess I'm cut off. Is that it for my time?
Commissioner Sullivan, could you
please continue talking?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. If you were to travel in Europe, where a lot of these small hydro projects have been around for over 100 years, you'll see that, and again, that's really the design life we're talking about here. This is, with maintenance, this thing will last forever. The penstock is buried underground. It'll be completely revegetated. You'll basically have a little concrete building at the bottom. There is an overhead section of power line that's shown on the plans. I believe it's page 150, shows the power line detail. 3/4 of the power line is buried underground. 1/4 of the power line is above ground, and the reason for that is to avoid, and that's where the terminology excessive impacts, the only way that you could bury a power line on the canyon wall, according to Mountain Electric, it's infeasible to go straight downhill. You'd have to put a switchback road, and you can't sidecast soil on that steep of a slope angle, so you'd have to truck all the material out. You would basically cause a whole lot of disturbance of the canyon wall if we were to bury it underground going up the canyon wall. We don't plan on using explosives. Let's see, the monitoring plan is included in the submittal. Water use. I am part of a Facebook group where I did respond to questions that local people had, and this issue of people using water from the creek was brought up, and I offered to halt construction if whoever is using the water would like to let me know who they are and when they would like to draw water from the creek. I do notice that there are no water rights in effect for anyone withdrawing water at Prudhoe Road, and maybe that's why they haven't contacted me, but I did reach out to everybody and offer that I could halt construction if they need to draw water, but no one has responded to me. Soil types. The geotechnical report discusses the soil type in detail. It's not a clay soil. It's an extremely ice-compacted, very competent material. The soil and what's under the soil is bedrock, an extremely competent bedrock, but that's discussed in detail in the geotech report. I guess I'll stop there.
Thank you. It appears as though we have questions.
Yes, can I just follow up with how many poles are you going to use?
Yes, page 150 shows the engineering design there will be, we changed the span to it's almost a 500-foot span from the powerhouse up to the termination of the underground segment, and that's going to require, contrary to the community council meeting, that design change is going to require us to have 2 poles down at the bottom with a crossbar. The 2 poles will be 10 feet apart. They'll still be 40-foot poles. And 2 poles at the termination of the underground segment, and then another 2 poles at the top. So it'll be 6 poles total, but they'll be in pairs of 2. And as far as the visibility of the power line, you will only be able to see this power line from standing at one point across the canyon within the Chugach State Park, up on the top of a ridge. Some people call it the Dragonback Ridge. So you'll be able to see the overhead part of the overhead power line from that location, but you can also see all of Eagle River Road. You can see Kinnick Island. You can see all of the development in the subdivision. So, and also the power line is. All of the power line is going to be lower in elevation than the house. So the house is going to be above where this power line is, and the view of the mountains is above the house. So the power line isn't going to be what's going to bother you and the view. What's going to bother Howard is going to be looking at my house. But Howard has a house, and you can see his house from the top of that ridge in Chugach State Park also.
Thank you.
Commissioner Winchester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, just one following up on that. So the power lines will not be viewable from anyone else's home, is that correct? I mean,
from their home?
Other property locations? I mean, you mentioned that it's visible from the ridge on the top, and I understand that. I'm just saying the power line isn't crossing in front of anyone's house? Is that?
No. See,
I mean, I'm looking at this. I can't see where it would, but I'm asking you the question.
Yeah. No, I think Howard would agree that you wouldn't be able to see this from your house, would you? Or Mike, would you? Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Furman?
I got a question about the
This is not an appropriate thing.
I already did my testimony, so it's too late.
Apparently, you had your opportunity to speak, sir.
I can't add. I'll just say that when you come to the corner of Prudhoe and Dolores, and you look up the draw where your project is, you can see where your project is. All of that is visible from the road.
Yes.
It might not be visible, but everybody that comes up the road can see it.
Well, they won't see the power line. You can see the terrain that goes to the intake, which is shown on page 145.
Okay. My question, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I really don't care about from the road. I'm only asking if from somebody's property or their home will you be able to see the power lines?
Yes, well, I haven't set foot on Howard's house, but I'm pretty sure from where his house sits, you can't see into the canyon.
Can you see it from
Harry's
Harry's house?
house, you can see part of the project. You can't see the powerhouse. You can't see the penstock. You can see part of the power line.
Okay, I think we'll stop the conversation with the audience.
Yeah, I'm asking you the question.
That was a good question that they corrected me on. You can see part of it from Harry and Candy Young's house.
But I'm guess my question is not whether you can necessarily see it, because you're going to be able to see this from across the canyon someplace. You'll be able to see something. I'm talking about there's nobody's property that's above this that you're actually going to look through power lines, for instance, at all, that I can understand. I can't make out from here that that's the case, but it doesn't appear to me that that's
there's no homes above us.
Your property is the top property, is that correct?
The highest one, yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, can I get Commissioner Miller's question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. First off, the hydrologic evaluation was done by Braley Hydrologic Consultants. Was that you?
Yes.
And what are your qualifications?
I've had my own hydrologic consulting business for since 1996. And I have graduate degrees in hydrology and geology. And I've got 31 years of experience here in Alaska.
Okay, are you an engineer?
No.
Okay. The next question then is, so let me just clarify. Whenever we're looking at variances are supposed to be really hard to meet. Yeah. That's the intent. You know, where you're going way outside of the code, so you really have to show that that you're meeting the standards. And I have a couple of questions on standards C and D. Standard C is that proposed alternative results and benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. Now, staff noted in their first sentence that the subject standard of delivering electric utilities via underground cable has been deemed cost prohibitive by the applicant. But I didn't see any economic evaluation in the report. The second part of that is that in your response to Standard C, which is on page 30 of the staff packet, you had said that the proposed project would preserve over 3,000 feet of stream corridor and over 150 acres of undeveloped land. So I'm kind of curious about how this project will preserve 3,000 feet of stream corridor. The other portion of this is your first bullet, utility infrastructure needed for residential development. That doesn't necessarily benefit the community, that benefits an individual. I'll stop there and let you address those. First off with the, if you did a cost comparison between putting in this hydro project and putting in underground power lines.
Yes, and there's another, in addition to this variance and the steep slope variance and the conditional use, there's a fourth variance that I've requested from the municipality, which is the utility undergrounding requirement. And I've submitted that application to the planning director, and that includes a cost analysis by Matanuska Electric Association and by Electric Power Systems, Inc., electrical engineers. They've provided engineers' estimates of the cost to install underground utility. Now, those utility links that they estimated were for the actual construction at the time. So what I did was I used those unit rates in my underground variance application, and I showed the links of underground line and applied those unit rates, and that's where you can come up with the cost of undergrounding the 3,500 feet from my neighbor Jake's house to the only allowable home site allowed by the steep slope rules. Is about $250,000 using that engineer's estimate of unit cost per foot underground.
And how about the hydro project?
The hydro project remains yet to be determined on the results of these variances and what's required. We were hoping to be able to construct it for about 1.2 to 1.3 million, but it's all dependent on what these requirements are. As I keep going through this process, the costs just keep going up and up and up.
So the staff's comment that the project is cost prohibitive, do you agree with that?
In terms of developing the property, yes, within my means, I can't afford to build a residence on it, and I guess the history of the property speaks for itself. No one's been able to live there since the Homestead cabin in 1968, which nobody really lived there. So we really have 160 acres that's uninhabitable, basically.
Okay, so the way this is economically feasible is selling power back to the grid?
That will finance the cost of building the hydro.
Okay, and then on the second point of preserving 3,000 feet of stream corridor and 150 acres of undeveloped land, could you speak to that?
Yeah, the code basically does not, this is considered a lot. Only one residence is allowed on this lot. And there's a whole host of problems with trying to subdivide it. So the 150 acres of undeveloped land, that is the land remaining after developing this project, which has not been disturbed. There's less than 10 acres of disturbance on this 160 acre parcel. Actually, the footprint of the project is 3.1 acres on my lot, Joel. So that's the disturbance on that lot, including the house, 3.1 acres. Now, there's some existing roads that might bring the total area of disturbance up to like maybe 8 acres, possibly. So the 150 is what's remaining of the 160-acre parcel after we build the home and develop the hydro. The 3,000 feet of stream corridor, that's how much stream we're not going to touch or disturb. It's going to, and because because the code, stream setback, with this variance, I'll be able to, disturb my small piece, less than 1/10 of an acre of wetland. All the rest of that stream course is going to be preserved by the code and by this lot. It won't be disturbed.
But if the project was developed, that stream corridor wouldn't be impacted anyway.
If the project was not developed?
That's right.
Right, it would not be disturbed.
Okay, but it wouldn't be preserved either way. I don't see how I'm not following how the project would actually preserve the stream corridor. I could see it might not have an effect on the stream corridor, but preservation would be, you're taking it out of any sort of negative impacts from either current or future development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess the fact of the matter is that the area of disturbance of stream of wetland in waters of the United States is about 0.07 acres. That's the impact to waters and wetlands of the United States. So the rest of all the rest of that habitat on this property is preserved by us owning it and maintaining ownership.
Okay, thank you. I don't have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bailey, a couple of questions here. Let's start first with this LLC and ownership. So you're the petitioner, and you're petitioning as a single-family residence. There's been discussion about an LLC. What is your relationship with the LLC, and who is going to own the power plant?
I'm the managing member of the LLC. The LLC has 4 members, including my wife and my best friend and his wife. We own the property together, and it's our agreement that I'm allowed to have a residence there. Does that answer your question?
Partially. Who is going to own the power plant?
Own the power plant? Well, we are paying for it, so we will own it.
So the LLC, RAM LLC, or I think it was RAM LLC.
Ram Valley LLC.
Ram Valley LLC is who owns the parcel.
Owns the parcel, yeah.
And you're acting on behalf of RAM LLC at this hearing, or you're...
Yes.
And RAM LLC will own in its entirety the structures and everything associated with this hydro.
Everything.
Okay. Were you aware of that?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thanks. That was a bit confusing, so thanks for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
There was discussion of an easement, a hiking easement. There's a lot of concern over access and that sort of thing. So the hiking easement is what was going to Chugach, and that has no correlation to this project.
It's already recorded. It's a done deal. And
is it parallel with and congruent with? Is it adjacent to this project?
No, it doesn't touch it. There's a map showing it. I'd have to look for the page number, but in the package shows the easement, and it's, I want to say, a quarter mile away from,
okay.
Well, it might come closer in one or two spots.
Okay, good. Thank you. This business of overhead electric and this power has to go to a substation in some fashion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that substation?
There is a substation down in the subdivision, if that's what you're talking about. It's called a Briggs substation.
So you're going to tie this power you're going to go from your structure overhead down the valley, and then at some point you're going to go underground, and that underground is going to go somewhere else.
Let me explain a little better. I think, as if I can refer to you to a good map. Page 17 might be a decent map. It's a bad quality, though. You can't really see the...
Holy moly, yeah.
Yeah.
No, the powerhouse, on page 17, you can see the powerhouse down in the bottom of the canyon, and there'll be a 500-foot overhead span going partway up the canyon wall to an underground segment that extends about 1,700 feet underground, sort of laterally over to the meeting residence there. You can see it called Crucify Residence on page 17. So it's underground to Jake and Alice Crucify's house, and that's basically we're connecting with the same size wire that serves his house, single phase wire, connecting to that service, and then so there is no substation till you get way down to the bottom of the subdivision.
So you're tying in to 2,300 feet from where the power is generated, 1,700 plus 500.
Yeah,
about.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
And the design limitation for the 500 overhead is based on just technically you cannot. Have you looked into drilling horizontally? Can you drill a power line and then feed it through there? Or is that not the code?
That's included as one of the options in the separate variants that I've applied for the utility undergrounding. So that addresses drilling of the power line through, one of the options has drilled segments to get around the bedrock and the springs, and to get underneath the creek.
Would that be cost prohibitive to say, or would it be not, would you not be in agreement if it was a condition to add that there are no overhead power lines?
Yeah, I mean, that's the separate variance, and the numbers are presented in that variance application to the director, but it's clearly not, I mean, this project won't happen if that's the requirement that it has to be underground.
For drilling underground for 500 feet?
Well, the route, again, it's all laid out in that other variance, but to go underground, we looked at drilling through bedrock areas and following the trail grade, following the trails instead of doing this overhand line. We looked at one option was following the trails that we've proposed, burying where we can, and where there's bedrock, we'd have to drill, and we have to drill underneath Juniper Creek. So there's 3 drilled segments that we looked at. But yeah, the total cost of that option was about $450,000.
And that's what you're interpreting as cost prohibitive to do for the project?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think we're going to do it if that.
And why is that?
It's not economic, though. It doesn't pay off.
It doesn't pay off as fast. It would pay off eventually. It would just take another couple of years because you're getting paid back by MEA.
Yeah, we won't do it if that's the requirement. It's we'll have to sell the property to somebody else.
Okay, good to know. And I had you've had some back to the view shed and this whole overhead power line issue. You haven't done a view shed analysis, have you?
No.
Okay. And are you opposed to doing a view shed analysis?
No, I think the result would be clear if you set foot up there. Like I said, it's in a 400-foot deep canyon.
Okay. And the concern is from residential property in the view shed onto the overhead power lines. The other ones, top of the Chugach Mountain, doesn't seem like it's an issue. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Winchester.
So, I guess going back to the view shed issue, I think it's been asked and answered, but I'm going to ask it again. They're basically the only place that you're aware of that these power lines would be visible is from the ridge up at the top, and potentially from the road, maybe. But
the power lines won't be visible from the road.
Okay.
There's a segment of trail. segment, of trail that you can see from the intersection of the road. And there's one residence across the canyon, actually, Harry and Candy Young, who are providing me access to my property. They have no objection to this project, by the way.
Okay.
And they can see part of the power line from their house. They won't be able to see the powerhouse or the penstock or the spillway, any of that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti.
I had a note on a completely different piece of paper as I ran out of room. There was some discussion about, early on, you said something about skiing, and I was just curious if, I haven't looked at the code, I don't know what the standards are for R10, but is there any intention in future or thoughts of having some sort of remote skiing chalet that serves the public, that has direct access through the easement into the Chugach Range?
Yeah, well, that wasn't my comment about skiing. I think that was, might have been Craig Walters said I had a ski chalet. That's the 360 square foot cabin. That's what we have. It sort of looks like a chalet. It has
no intention to do anything like that. And if I don't know what other conditional use. I mean, I know it's about this.
No.
I don't know what else is attached to it, but.
No, we'd like to live up there. We'd like to build a house, live up there, and that's what we'd like to do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Would you please clarify something for me? I'm looking at the map on, what is it, page, what page was that? 17, is that right? 11. Sorry, on page 11, and it has petition site right smack dab in the middle of the lot. I'm curious as to where the actual intake would be and the powerhouse, and maybe that's on another map that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I'm sorry this didn't reproduce very well. Can you read the one on page 17?
On 17?
Yeah, there you can see there's white lines. The white line, it says powerhouse, so that should give you a clue where the powerhouse is, and the intake gauge. Does that sort of give you an idea?
Yeah, so it's basically on the boundary of the property. Yes, yeah.
The powerhouse is, yes, very close to the west, that boundary.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is with Standard D, which is the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. And we've talked about this basically this whole discussion. So I guess I'm wondering whether the powerhouse and intake will be not necessarily visible from adjacent properties, but there's a lot of concern about the hiking up there and access to the backcountry. But I just want to clarify, since this is on your property, are people hiking through that area?
No, as long as we're on that page 17, do you see the pedestrian easement?
Yes.
So, as you can see, it's the pedestrian easement is about more than a quarter mile away from the powerhouse and penstock, all that business. It's also about almost 1,000 feet below. So, it's, if anybody wanted to go hiking in Chugach State Park, you would not hike up the canyon. It's almost impenetrable alder. There's no trail, really difficult walking, very difficult walking because of the alders. And actually, so if anybody wants, the traditional access up through there is kind of in the driveway to the cabin, which sort of parallels the pedestrian easement. So people walk up that and trespass up that, and people walk on the pedestrian easement. That's how they get to the park.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Cohn?
There was one comment that came up about the property being sold from the Conservation Fund. Is that, did that come with any, can you explain that a little bit? And also, did that come with any obligations for the use of the property?
For the use of the property, it's been 13 years now, so I don't remember all the details of that, but the pedestrian easement was one of those conditions. The Conservation Fund basically stepped in, twisted around, and would not sell us the property unless we recorded that easement. And we weren't part of the Conservation Fund or anything, so it's not like we were in cahoots with them.
Commissioner Cash?
My mic's on. Hi.
Hi.
My question has to do with referring back to the 500-foot span when you were describing the pole quantity and how they would be laid out.
Yeah.
So that total span is 500 feet?
Well, let's look on, yeah, well, it's, let's see, page 150. Page 150 shows the map. So there's a 500-foot span from the powerhouse up to the termination of the buried intertie. And then there's another about 300-foot span to just get up to the top of the canyon where we can go underground again over to the residence.
So the total extent of the span is about 800 feet?
Yeah, that would be the total overhead portion.
And how is that length compare? How does it compare to your planned underground?
Yeah, the total length, I think, again, I refer you to this other variance that I've submitted that the planning director is considering. The total length, I think, is 3,200 feet entirely, of which 800 feet is overhead.
Thank you. And I apologize, but just the detail of that variance that you're referring to with regard to having to bury?
Yes, part of Title 21, I don't know if I can recall the citation, but it's utility undergrounding. Undergrounding is required for all new utilities, except in cases where it causes excessive environmental damage or where it costs more than 3 times the cost of overhead.
And that's the reason that you are burying the cable in that area?
Cost and environmental impact, yes.
So you're burying it you're burying it in compliance with that?
Yes, it's being buried every way that we can up to this section where we're going overhead to minimize the ground disturbance and creek disturbance of going underground.
Okay, thank you.
We have Mr. Yaley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You can forget the E on the end of my last name.
Yell?
Just Yell.
Okay. Yee?
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to provide a code citation to further discussion on the undergrounding variance that Mr. Braley had applied to the planning director. That specific code citation is 21.07.050C. And just like to add on to that, there has been a lot of discussion about the overhead line issue, but if I could steer back, the petition before you tonight is for a stream protection setback encroachment. I would caution the commission on using the overhead lines and that variance as findings for this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the petitioner? Going once. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. And the decision rests with the commission. Can I get a motion? Is there, Commissioner Winchester has moved. Can I get a second? Commissioner Cash has a second. Commissioner Winchester, would you please state your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move for approval of variance AMC 21.07020B4, case number 20180076, based on the with the four recommendations of the department, number 1 through 4.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Winchester, can you speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find this is a remarkable project. It's a lifelong Alaskan. The resources of the state in terms of hydropower have not been even begun to be tapped in the types of projects which I'm very familiar in southeast Alaska and across the state that have been put in. This type of project are commendable. This is a very unique situation and a very situation of our local community that I understand has its situation with the local folks. At the same time, I think that it's commendable what this particular project has brought forward as the possibilities. And I think that there are lots of pieces and parts to this, of which we as the Urban Design Commission are only dealing with the variance based on the criteria that are put before us. There are a lot of other issues that were brought up this evening that are not really of the purview, as mentioned, of the Urban Design Commission. The variances of underground versus overhead, other issues are not part of what we deal with. So with that, I am going to support this motion, and I'm going to support the project. I do believe that there are lots of folks who are going to continue to provide for this project's review, both from the municipality of Anchorage and also both federal and state agencies will be looking at this project on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Commissioner Cash, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, thank you. I too agree that essentially the requirements, the conditions have been met, and my hope is that these types of projects will become easier and progress more so that it too can be more widespread in our state. You know, that's really all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or, oh, I'm sorry, are there other findings that someone would like to speak to? Oh. Commissioner Miller?
Yes, I would like to move to amend staff condition number 4. The condition as it reads simply states that the petitioner will submit a noise and vibration or sound vibration study, but it doesn't say anything beyond that. So I'm going to try to make this sound somewhat professional, and would like to amend or to revise staff condition number 4 to read: prior to this variance becoming effective, actually, I think I'm out of step here. I think I have to make a motion first. So I will do that.
Oh, for the amendment. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a second from Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you. So I would like to move to revise staff condition number 4 to read, prior to this variance becoming effective, the petitioner shall submit a sound and vibration study to the Department of Health and Human Services for review. If adverse effects are identified by the Department of Health and Human Services, the petitioner shall mitigate those effects in coordination with the Department of Health and Human Services. Approval will be based on no objection from the Department of Health and Human Services. The study shall take into account potential amplification of operating noise from local terrain features.
Okay, I think I got 99% of it. I'm going to repeat it back to you. So this is an amendment to condition number 4. Prior to this variance becoming effective, the petitioner shall submit a sound and vibration study to the Department of Health and Human Services for review. If adverse effects are identified by the Department of Health and Human Services, the petitioner shall mitigate in coordination with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Shall mitigate those effects.
Shall mitigate those effects.
In coordination with Department of Health and Human Services.
Shall mitigate those effects in coordination with the Department of Health and Human Services. And with the provisions of AMC. Did you leave that in there?
Right, sorry,
Yeah.
yes. In accordance with provisions with AMC, yes.
Okay. And then the study shall take into account potential amplification of operating noise and local terrain features.
That's right.
Okay. Do I need to repeat that? Okay. Do we have any discussion?
No, nothing. If possible,
Sorry.
if we could get a report of that study, would be nice by email when they receive it. That would be great.
Commissioner Sullivan is requesting a copy of the results of the DHHS study. Would you like to add that to your condition?
No.
Commissioner Leonetti, I have it here that you wanted to speak. Are you?
It was on the main motion. So I'm in concurrence with the current motion on the floor. I don't have any comments.
Okay. So now we need a motion to approve the amended motion. All right, we need to vote on the motion to approve the amended motion. Okay. The amended motion passes. And now we're back to the main motion. So can I get a vote on the main motion, the amended motion? I get.
I was going to speak to, to that.
Okay, thank you.
And we need to add findings as well.
Yes.
Before we can vote on it. I think this is a great project. I think the petitioner has done a fabulous job in responding to a lot of the public's testimony and concerns. There were a lot of topics that came up, as Mr. Winchester mentioned, that were pertinent to the public, but had zero bearing on our purview, and therefore we can't really respond to them. But I would like to add one finding. I'm presuming Mr. Winchester is going to go through the gauntlet of findings, but I will add a finding that the State of Alaska Department of Fish and Game did conduct a site visit, since this is a stream, and they concluded that because of the high stream flow conditions and topography, they did not sample for the presence of fish. However, fish presence in the project area is unlikely, and Fish and Game has no concerns with the project as proposed. So That's all I have right now. I might add a couple more after the gauntlet goes.
Commissioner Winchester, did you have further findings of fact?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to allow all of our commissioners here to add. And I would like to, as we stated in the previous project, we have to go through a fairly extensive findings of fact because this is a variance, and it does include really making sure that we've read into the record what's going on. So I will read into the record the following findings of fact. Regard to condition A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design and standard to the same or better degree than the subject standard. We believe that the standard is met. The subject standard would be to deliver electric utilities to this site via a traditional underground cables with little or no disturbance to the creek. However, due to the size of the site and the topography, the relation to the existing power lines, the cost to deliver electric utilities to this site using underground cables would make any residential development of the site prohibitive and impractical. As such, the petitioner has decided to pursue the development of hydroelectric utility on this property. Hydroelectric utilities, by their very nature, must be installed within or very near existing streams. Based on the information provided by the applicant, it appears that the minimal disturbance and the alteration of the creek bed will occur as a result of this project. And again, we're relying on the fact that there are a lot of other agencies that are going to be pursuing the review of this project as it goes under construction. The utility will be in the Runner River system and will not involve the construction of a large dam or walls or create any standing water in a reservoir near the site. Condition B, or issue B, the proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard, and we believe the standard is met. This parcel is classified as R1, one dwelling per acre in the 2006 Chugach Eagle River Comprehensive
Madam Chair,
Plan.
point of order.
Excuse me?
Point of order. I'd just like to clarify in the findings the site is zoned CER 10.
CER
not R1.
Okay.
My apologies for the interruption.
No problem. Thank you very much. The development of the hydroelectric facility and the resulting stream setback encroachment will not change the classification of this parcel in the comprehensive plan. Petitioner has future plans to develop a single-family residence on the site that will serve as a primary use. Hydroelectric facility will provide a needed electric utility to this site and will serve as a source of income to the property owner, which, of course, as we all know, will pay for the fact that this project will go forward. Additionally, this project is compliant with the following goals and achievements, objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. Goal 11A, promote economic growth that both builds on the area's resources and assets and supports a mix of urban and suburban and rural lifestyles while providing a range of employment opportunities and adequate supply and variety of goods and services. This project will harness a portion of the energy from the Juniper Creek to produce electric power for a future single-family home. The submitted plans show the development of a single-family residence on the site, and as pointed out, no other project could be built on this site without subdivision of land, which would put this whole project into a whole nother level of variance or again, subdivision through planning and zoning and this commission. The construction and maintenance of the hydroelectric facility will provide specialized employment opportunities to local residents as well as diversify electric utility network within the municipality. Objectives 1 to F, encourage economic development through home-based businesses, vary municipal regulation of home-based occupations between the urban and rural parts of the community to reflect the different types of commercial enterprises that are compatible with the different areas. Upon completion, the hydroelectric power will provide additional income to the property owner because they will be selling excess power back to the local utility MEA. Goal 2.1b, ensure the development plans adequately address or offset impacts on the environment. Hydroelectric utilities by design must be constructed within or near to streams. As a result, some initial disturbance of the natural stream course is anticipated. However, the information provided by the applicant provides details on their construction, maintenance operations, which will be conducted in a manner that minimizes disturbance to the natural stream course and stream bed and mitigate downstream's flood hazards. Objective 2A2. Preserve, protect high-value wetlands, stream corridors, aquifer recharge areas, and other important natural features. Although this project will be by nature disturbance to an existing stream corridor, the applicant will be utilizing construction and maintenance methods that will minimize the negative impacts to the stream. The run-of-river design of this hydroelectric utility will preserve natural flow rates, downstream sediment deposition, and will not increase, the flood risk for downstream properties. Criteria C. The proposed alternative results in the benefit to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standards. We believe that this standard is met. The subject standard of delivering electric utilities via underground cables has been deemed cost prohibitive by the applicant. I think we've heard information tonight and will be presented in a separate variance related to those issues. Unique factors such as lot size, steep topography, proximity to existing utilities greatly increase the challenge of delivering traditional underground utilities to the site. As such, the petitioner has decided to pursue development of hydroelectric generator on the property. Hydroelectric projects, by their very nature, must be installed within or near moving bodies of water. Based on the information provided by the applicant, it appears that the minimal disturbance and alteration to the creek bed will occur as a result of the project. Utility will be running run-of-river system that will not involve construction of large dam walls or create a standing water reservoir near the site. The construction methods used by the applicant to construct the utility will be conducted in a manner that does not cause excessive disturbance in the natural stream course, creek bed, or increase the flood risk for downstream properties. Nearby residents and community will benefit from this unique project, which brings specialized employment opportunities to Chugach Eagle River. I think we've also addressed some of the issues of noise one day on the helicopter, some of those kinds of issues that relate to the local community and the fact that this is going to have minimal disturbance. Item D, the variance is granted will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. We believe the standard is met. Proposed Juniper Creek hydroelectric project is being constructed to bring needed electric utilities to the area that is cost prohibitive to install conventional underground utility lines. The installation of this facility will not adversely affect the use of adjacent properties. It will enhance the ability of this parcel to accommodate existing and future single-family homes. Visual impacts from this project will be minimized, and again, I want to stress that this is only one house is allowed on this property under the current zoning and under the current use of that property, and any changes to that, which would mean would require subdivision of the property and require a whole another set of hearings through planning and zoning and through this body. Visual impacts from this property will be minimal given its placement within the deep canyon. Information provided by the applicant states the type of hydroelectric project, a run-of-river system, will not cause adverse impacts downstream, such as fluctuation in stream flow, sediment deposition, or degradation of wildlife and fish habitat. And I think I have had personal experience of these types of projects in southeast Alaska and the one, of course, at South Eagle River Canyon, and I think the petitioner presented that, and I have experience with those. They really don't adversely affect the local habitat. The variance, if granted, does not, item E, the variance, if granted, does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located. It is keeping with the intent of the code and does not permit a use not otherwise permitted in the district in which the property lies. We believe the standard is met. This hydroelectric project will not change the character of the CER 10, thank you for correcting us earlier, district where this project is located. In accordance with AMC 2107-050A, all new utility distribution lines shall be placed underground. The petitioner has explored several options to deliver underground electric utilities to this site, but the cost of doing so exceeds the value of the property itself. Given that it is cost prohibitive to deliver conventional electric lines to this site, petitioner is severely limited on developing the property for a single-family home. Utility substations are allowed in all residential zoning districts subject to a conditional use approval. As a condition of approval, the petitioner shall be required to obtain conditional use approval for the use of the hydroelectric utility substation before this variance shall take effect. I think that's pretty important. That this additional conditional use approval will be required before this variance takes effect, and the petitioner is very well aware of this. Item F, persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by American Disabilities Act and reasonable accommodation. The standard is met. The variance does not involve ADA accessibility. Item G, the variance, if granted, does not adversely affect health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. The standard is partially met, and information provided in the application states that a spillway failure would have negligible effects on the downstream properties due to the design of this hydro facility. Although flooding may not be a concern, there is potential that adjacent properties may be adversely affected from excessive noise and vibration from this project. And basically, I'm going to stop at that point because condition number 4, as amended by this board, carefully resolves this issue, and the petitioner has agreed to provide that study and deal with the Department of Health and Human Services and resolve that issue as part of the conditions of this approval. Item number H, the evaluating the request for variance from the maximum sign height. I'm not going to read that whole thing because the sign doesn't really resolve. There's no requirement for a sign. Okay, that's all of the conditions and all of the issues. Again, I want to reiterate, I want to thank everybody for their testimony. I truly do believe there are some valid concerns, and they've been addressed by the applicant. Thank the applicant for all their hard work. This particular kind of project does not happen without someone who really follows through on all the various issues involved, and you've taken up a couple of those even tonight additionally and resolving those. So I think it's exciting to see this again in our locale and hope we can see some more of this kind of project in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchester. Can we go ahead and vote? I don't think so. Okay, we'll go ahead and move this motion to a vote. Okay. What happened? There we go.
This is the main motion, correct?
My apologies. We're back to the main amended motion.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And the motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, are there any comments from commissioners tonight? Commissioner Leonetti, you're still on board. You don't have any comments?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here and accounted for. If you could erase my name from the comments, that'd be great.
I'm sorry, I've had a voting screen on my script for an hour. Commissioner Sullivan.
Are we replacing James Aho for someone else? I think it would be good to have another civil engineer or a landscaper.
Absolutely.
So should we try to find someone to recommend?
I did.
So did I.
You did? All
I
right.
did, and I'm hoping that person is being considered.
A civil engineer?
A DOT civil engineer.
Okay, perfect.
Ooh, wow.
That would be great.
Good work.
She applied and all.
Oh, wow.
Edith McKee.
Thank you.
Good job on your first meeting. Happy birthday.
I was going to say, thank you. Also, there is not an August meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Leonetti and a second from Commissioner Winchester. Thank you. Can I use the gavel? I'm just kidding.